My life got to a point where I needed to start looking at this concept of balance. So I did what I guess most people do, is I try to continuously, on a day-to-day basis, juggle the priorities in my life. That did indeed end up being a recipe for disaster. A very good morning, everybody. Welcome to the video. It is Monday. It is the start of yet another week, and today is a pretty run-of-the-mill showcase of the three priorities in my life: my family, my work, and then of course cycling. So I thought I'll take you with me, and as I go about my day, I will talk to you a little bit about how I currently approach balancing all these things out. A couple of years ago, I read a very good book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. This one. Highly recommended, by the way. In this book, they talk about how balance is a myth, at least the way that we, or that most people try and currently attain it. It's a breeding ground for unproductivity, and it's something that simply doesn't work. I read the book. I thought what they proposed as an alternative approach was kind of novel and interesting. And I thought, okay, but I didn't do an awful lot with it. I didn't make much of it because at that time my life wasn't at a point where I felt like I needed to look at balance. As I got older, I started picking up more responsibilities. So I did what I guess most people do, is I try to continuously, on a day-to-day basis, juggle the priorities in my life. That did indeed end up being a recipe for disaster, in me running around in circles and not making any progress anywhere. And then I thought, hang on, I read a book about this a little while ago, so let me revisit that and try and apply that alternative approach. I did it, and I've never looked back since.
So what the book advocates is deliberately going off balance to quite an extent, because it's only when you do that that you can actually deliver serious results. You kind of have to go off center, and you consciously neglect some of the other priorities in order to get that progress on the priority that you select at that moment in time to want to push forward. The trick then becomes applying counterbalance whenever you go off center, so that at given times you bring the whole equation back. And it's this continuous ebb and flow of going consciously off balance and then applying counterbalance to come back to the center that allows you to create an overall balanced life while at the same time achieving decent results. So an important thing to note, and something that I've experienced as well, is that you have to consciously and deliberately select the priorities that you want to focus on in your life. You won't get away with 10. It's really very much about a less is more approach. It's also a trait you see in hyper successful people. They never spread themselves too thin. They have a very laser sharp focus on a very limited amount of things that they want to do right. Once you've made your selection, you can then start applying the ebb and flow, the off-balance, counterbalance equation. The way that I look at it is kind of on two levels, on the macro level and the micro level. That is the client meeting done. My team member dropped off at home again, and now for a little bit more work. Alright, so to talk a little bit about that macro approach. So I'll have periods of about 1 to 3, 4 weeks where I will decide to focus on one particular priority in my life and take that priority off balance, off center. The period of about a month before I participate in a Fondo event or race, I'll dedicate to cycling and training. That's where I will be going off balance, and then I'll be applying counterbalance by doing activities with the family and going into maintenance work or going into maintenance mode at work. The cycling off season, I go very much off balance, off center, with a lot of focus on work and the family, and then I'll try and apply a little bit of counterbalance with some riding here or there. The holiday period, Christmas and New Year's, that's typically very slow at work, and then I will be going off center with more time with the family and riding and applying a little bit of counterbalance by keeping in check with some of the things at work. And then of course there'll be periods at work where it is absolutely full gas because of specific projects or client work. And then it is going off center, going off balance, heavily leaning to the work side and applying counterbalance with family activities and writing to the best of my abilities whenever I can. And then on a micro level, the same thing applies. For example, with cycling, you might decide to put a little bit more focus on the endurance side at one point. At another point in time, you might put more focus on the top end, VO2 max and whatnot. Actually, any decent training program should already include that. That's what's called periodization. Then at work, very much the same will apply. I've used this methodology for many years now at our business, and it seems to have done quite well for itself. In where I, as a co-founder and business owner, will need to focus on one particular part of the business and then kind of give that my attention, time and focus for that to grow, knowingly going off balance and providing counterbalance in other areas of the business. And then that will shift where I will put my focus somewhere else, go off balance again. And it is only in doing that that I've really been able to push certain elements of the business forward. That's really the only way that I've been able to kind of make the business grow. Otherwise, it's just mediocre stagnation. And then finally, with family and friends, the same thing applies as well. At given times, you might put a lot more focus on your, close family, your spouse, your kids. And then at other times, you'll focus a little bit more on your wider family, your parents, your in-laws, and then at times your friends. The key remains consciously deciding that you will go off balance, that you will go away from the center because you want to make some progress in that particular area, all the while realizing that that's okay that you're doing that, because there is going to be a point in time where you will then move to the other side of the spectrum, go off balance within another area, and then give that your much needed attention and energy. Which tree are we going to put it on? At the minute, for me, it is pretty much off balance, off center with work. I was up pretty early this morning because it's quite busy at work. The other priority that I'm putting a little bit more emphasis on at this minute as well is the cycling, because I'm preparing for the first fondo of the year in February, which means that after I put Lily to bed, I'm going to jump on the bike to get at least an hour of riding in. That's something that I wouldn't do if my priorities would have been shifted around. In about a week or 2 or 3, the riding and the work will be taking the back seat, and then it'll be full gas with the family for a good chunk of time. So one thing I wanted to highlight as well, and this is something that I've learned over the years as I have tried to kind of master this particular approach, and something that I didn't quite do very well in the beginning, is that communication is key. You got to communicate properly with the people in your life when you make a decision to go off center towards a particular priority in your life. Make that clear, make that known, and it will make your life a lot easier. At least it has for me. And another thing which I think is quite important is moderation, right? You got to go easy with this as well. You got to really know how far you can push this with this concept of going off balance. If you say that you want to focus on cycling and you then go and book an apartment in Mallorca, for example, and live 3 months on your own just because you want to go and get some serious training in, and that is your way of going off balance, the chances are that when you try and come back to the center, there might not be a whole lot left for you, in that you might have lost your job and your family might have packed their bags and left as well. And that's the day almost concluded, and it's time that we ever so slightly do the same with the video as well. So I do that by running through the main reasons why this particular approach works so well for me and has served me so well over the past couple of years. The first is how this approach allows me to combine making progress with achieving an overall balanced life. A few people that are way smarter than me have done research on what makes humans happy. And one of the things that they found is that being able to make meaningful progress towards a goal that somebody has set is apparently a main driver for happiness. The key here is meaningful progress. And if you're continuously seeking a balanced life at the expense of being able to make progress, it's not going to make you very happy. Second reason is being able to focus on the things that I want to push forward in a guilt-free manner. And this is one that I used to struggle with. Whenever I was focusing on the family, I had my head on the cycling training or at work, and vice versa. I was never really fully in the moment. This approach has allowed me to do exactly that, to when I'm doing something that I want to push forward, I am 100% there. I am 100% dedicated and focused on that particular activity. Because I know that even though I might be at that moment in time slightly neglecting some of the other things in my life, I will come back to them and I will treat them with the same intent and with the same intensity. All right, and that's that. If you have liked the video, it would be massively appreciated if you hit the like button. If you check out some of the other stuff on my channel and you like it, then perhaps consider subscribing and you'll be kept updated whenever I release new content. It's going to start being a lot more focused on the Gran Fondo racing because I have a few of them coming up. So thank you, be safe, be healthy, enjoy what you're doing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.